Hi there, this revision video looks at supply chains. Now, what is a supply chain? Well, it's a complex network of individuals, businesses, resources, activities and technologies involved in the creation and distribution of a good or service, from sourcing the initial raw materials to the final delivery to consumers. Now, these supply chains frequently span multiple countries and continents, illustrating, and this is really important, the deep interdependence of a globalised economy. According to McKinsey, 80% of global trade, particularly in goods, is tied to international supply chains. So when we think about supply chains, it's a reminder that no country operates in isolation. Even a simple product, the travels of a t-shirt in the world economy, might pass through, 5, probably even more countries before it hits the store shelf for you to buy. Supply chains show how decisions in one country ripple globally, whether it's a port closure due to COVID, the consequences of war, or, as we've seen in the news recently, a new trade tariff. So here are the key elements of a supply chain. Raw material sourcing from mines, farms or other natural sources. Manufacturing and assembly, where raw materials are processed and transformed into products. Logistics and transportation, moving goods across borders, across countries to different markets. Distribution, delivering the products to retailers or directly to consumers. And then finally, of course, retail and after sales, where the end user interacts with the product. So be aware of this vertical supply chain at both a micro and a macroeconomic level. A couple of examples. The iPhone is the iconic example of a deeply integrated world economy. In 2024, Apple's supply chain involved over 200 different suppliers across 43 countries. Now, China is still a dominant assembler of iPhones due to low unit labour costs, infrastructure and scale. But some manufacturing has shifted to Vietnam and India. So, the sourcing. Rare earths are sourced from countries like China, which may restrict them, and the DRC. Manufacturing, you take components from Taiwan, screens from South Korea, mainly shipped to China, where final assembly is done by companies like Foxconn. And then obviously distribution. The iPhones are shipped globally to Apple stores and third-party sellers around the world. Another good example is the global textile industry. Have a look at this chart. This is the number of manufacturing factories operated by Primark by country. And you can see that China dominates, followed by Bangladesh, India and Turkey. But Primark has manufacturing factories in many countries, including the UK. So in terms of the global supply chain, natural fibres, cotton, wool and silk will come from different countries. Synthetic fibres such as polyester and nylon, mainly from China and Taiwan. Then you have the assembly and the garment manufacturing process, where textiles are cut, sewn and assembled into final output. Mainly, not exclusively done in countries such as Bangladesh, India, Vietnam, Cambodia and Ethiopia, where unit labour costs are low. And then you have distribution and retail. Finished garments are shipped to global markets, including, of course, the United States, the EU, Japan and the UK. Interestingly, in 2022, if we take US fashion companies, in 2022, 53% of US fashion companies sourced their brands from 10 or more countries. The global textile supply chain does, however, face pressure from various sources, including environmental, ethical and geopolitical risks. And so there's some evidence that brands are exploring nearshoring, where they move their production closer to the final markets, for example, Mexico for the United States. The shift towards automation, which clearly impacts on jobs in countries such as Cambodia and Bangladesh, and increasingly, as businesses reflect on the pressures of fast fashion, a shift towards using more sustainable materials and hopefully circular models. But please understand the importance of supply chains. If you really want to understand globalisation and some of the challenges and consequences of things like tariff wars, then an understanding of supply chains with examples is super important. Thanks for joining in this video.